What is up, you guys? Coach Joey coming in, your fitness coach and mentor. It is August 2nd, and I wanted to come in with a message for today to kind of add on to our nutritional series that we've been following. So I've lost count of the weeks that we're in now. Hopefully those of you who are following along have kind of watched these things in some sort of sequential order. If you're just tuning in and some of the stuff is going to make sense to you, or you're like, why would he talk about this and not talk about that? Go back to video number 1 and try to watch them in order, and then some of the stuff that we talk about will make a little bit more sense. So when the series started, we kind of talked about fundamental and foundational nutrition, and then now kind of weekly I like to come in with some tips that'll hopefully kind of keep you guys on track and hopefully some other things that on other days might help keep you guys motivated. So I wanted to talk about something today because it was kind of specific to how my day laid out. And one of the most common things, especially with anybody that I work with in the remote nutrition consultant, usually at one time or another, the question will come up of, I'm going out to eat here, what should I eat? So the eating out dilemma. For me personally, the short answer is if you're really trying to finite tune in and be on top of your nutrition as best as you can, you want to try to avoid eating out at all costs. Not to say that there's not healthier choices than others, but you really never know exactly what's in your food that way. So if you're somebody who's really trying to dial in your nutrition and you're keeping track of everything, maybe you're even going as far as weighing and measuring, eating out is usually going to be counterproductive to that. Now, I'm not saying that if you're somebody who's not preparing for something specific, or if you're somebody who's not quite as OCD with your nutrition, and occasionally you're still going to go out and eat. There's a couple of ways that you can look at it. Number 1, just go out and eat, right? Not too tricky. If you stay on track 99% of the time and you go out to eat maybe once a month, who cares if you eat some stuffed fried egg rolls from Chili's and drink a couple beers? I'm not saying that you should do this once a week. I'm not saying that maybe you should even do this once a month. This is one of those things where maybe if you just kind of go out, once every 3 months, and if you stay on track the majority of the time, don't stress it. You'll drive yourself crazy, all right? It's just once in a while. Now, if you're somebody who falls in a category of maybe a once a month outing, or maybe even more frequently a once a week outing, that's where you have to start trying to pay attention a little bit more to healthier choices. So obviously there's a common sense rule. If you go out to eat a half-pound bacon cheeseburger with mayonnaise and ketchup on it, probably not a good idea. I understand that there's meat. Here's the other kicker. Bacon, egg, and cheeseburger, half-pounder with mayonnaise and ketchup with it, minus the bun. Still not a good idea. Sorry, it ain't the bread. I promise you. All right? So when you start talking about going out and eating, and it's maybe a little bit more frequent, once a week or maybe even twice a week, you want to start trying to make some healthier options. So obviously there's going to be places that you can go that are going to have a healthier menu than other places. So that's a good starting point. If you go to somewhere maybe like a Panera Bread or a Crispers, or if you start to think about restaurants, I know there's a couple of places downtown like the Good For You Cafe. There's a couple of like mom and pops places where usually there's a little bit more healthier options as far as what you can have in a restaurant setting. That's going to kind of save you a little bit, but you still have to be careful of some of the food choices that you make. So obviously we've talked about carbohydrates, proteins, fat, and all those kind of things, so we're not going to kind of get into that. But for instance, you can't usually go too wrong. Most restaurants are going to have some sort of grilled chicken, some sort of vegetable, some sort of healthy carbohydrate if you choose like a sweet potato or even regular potatoes or something like that. So I have like an internal battle, because when I go out to restaurants I typically will eat stuff that's pretty bland, and the problem that I have with that is I feel like I can make it at my house for $3, but when I go out to a restaurant I'm going to pay $13.99. So I have an internal battle sometimes with going out to eat with that. So that makes it a little bit more difficult for me when I go out to eat. Like I said, it's just one of those things I try not to do frequently if I can avoid it. So obviously the chicken, vegetable, some sort of healthy carbohydrate, lean cut of steak, vegetable, some sort of good carbohydrate, fish, vegetable, some sort of good carbohydrate, usually going to be all right with that. Those are probably going to be your premier choices when you're out at a restaurant. Now, let's start to dial it back a little bit. Let's say you go to a restaurant and you want to kind of stay on track, but you're going to let loose a little bit. So then you start to look at some other options that you can have. You can't really go too wrong if you have something like a chicken sandwich. Maybe they have, I know a lot of restaurants have like gluten-free options now. Not that I'm a big stickler on gluten-free, but usually that's a little bit better for you for your gastro systems and on a glycemic index as far as consumption. But it's not the end of the world. So something like a chicken sandwich, sometimes chicken wraps, some of those things are, you know, not the greatest option. There's obviously some better options, but still not the end of the world. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of rice. You know, I understand that. You have to be careful in restaurants because portions, especially in our country, are really just out of control. So it's really hard to determine how much food is actually on your plate. Another reason Coach Joey doesn't like to go out and eat is because I'm the type of person, well, I just have to eat everything on my plate. So a lot of restaurants now, and I experienced this past weekend, they have like these smaller portions you could pick from. And usually your eyes are a little bit bigger than your stomach, especially if you go to sushi. Sushi is not healthy for you in this country, all right? That stuff is loaded with calories and fat unless you just get like a salmon bland roll with rice, all right? So don't tell yourself you're eating healthy if you're getting like crispy fried spicy mayo shrimp cocktail roll with sugar and chocolate syrup on the side. It's not good for you, even if it is sushi, all right? Sorry, that was my rant on sushi. But anyways, so when you're going out, you could start to see that you can make healthier choices over others. But like I said, portion control is a big thing. Just, you know, the country that we live in, they instead of the way that the restaurant tries to increase the perceived value of what you're doing is just to give you more of it. And realistically, it's not a great thing because then you end up overeating is a big thing in restaurants as well. So just to kind of recap this before I drag on too much. One, if somebody doesn't go out that frequently and you're going out, what the fuck? Eat whatever you want. Not a big deal, right? Just that's like somebody who's a 95% of the rest of the time. Number two, if you're somebody who goes out to eat more than once a month, you have to start making some educated decisions. Here's what I always tell people. If you have to ask yourself or people who work with me, like in the remote nutrition consultant, if someone texts me and says, is it okay if I eat this? They usually know the answer. It's no. So if you have to ask yourself if this is something that I should eat, don't even do it. Just try to find a better option. Try to stick to places that are going to offer better food choices for you. Usually the mom and pops places do a little bit of a better job, but there seems to be a shift in our country into healthy eating. So a lot of places give you the opportunity to pick healthier choices. Portions. If smaller portions are available, get the smaller portion. I promise you, there's usually going to be enough food for you to get full on that. If you look at the portion sizes in restaurants in other countries compared to our countries, it would floor you. Last thing. We live in a world of technology. Some people don't want to know the truth, but I promise you, if you Google the restaurant that you're at and the meal that you're going to get, there's probably a breakdown of all the nutritional values in it. Sodium and fat and carbohydrates are usually going to be through the roof, and believe it or not, most meals that you eat in a restaurant are going to be north of 1,200 calories or better. So it's one of those things that sometimes you're like, oh, well, I just had the chicken pasta, and you pull it up and there's like 1,900 calories in it. So those are the things right there. Don't forget, we live in a world of technology. So take the opportunity, if you're sitting in a restaurant, you can Google what are the healthiest food options at ... and usually you'll be able to find some pretty decent options that way if you're in a pinch. All right, you guys, I hope this was helpful. Coach Joey out. Sorry this ran on a little bit. We'll see you guys. It is officially 6:30 in the evening, and I'm pulling up to the house. But if you have any questions, you always know where to find me. And if you're interested in getting some one-on-one nutrition help, you know, come by, give me a call, give me an email. We'll get you set up and get you going in the right direction. You guys have a wonderful day.